Okay, so we keep going on the 2-4 on the right angle cross of service. I like the second line of the 18. I think it's one of those lines that is so perfect. Terminal disease. I love the name too. I'm an old shocker. I can remember in the early years people saying, "Am I going to die?" And I said, "Yes, you are. I don't know when, but it's terminal." The recognition that what has been spoiled is irreversible. I love it. You can't fix it. So don't try. There's a wonderful line. Unfortunately, it's attached to the not self too. The not self doesn't really want to fix anything. It is work. You've got to have some background in it. And it might mean that you have to really look into things carefully. This is from Prudlow. If you think you're going to find truth in this line, you're a fool. Acceptance and strength derive from a faith in spiritual generation. What the hell does that mean? The acceptance that there's no potential for correction. In other words, it's in the hand of the gods. This is the great line because the whole thing about the 18 is that it's so overwhelmed when it fears that it figures it out that it doesn't fix it. It will die. It has to fix it. How upset 18s are when they see something that needs to be fixed and it's not fixed right away, even if it's a minor thing. It eats at them. And this line says can be fixed, and you can get the whole futile raging against the wind. Remember my warning, beware of moons in detriment. Nothing is more devastating in all activation than the moon in detriment. Moon in detriment line gives you such a whack, and this raging at the wind is one of the things that I notice is an archetype of the 18th, particularly the 18s that are generators, who have this deep frustration and is howling at the gods that it can be fixed because they know it can be fixed. The other side is that this is the closest, the very, very closest that logic gets to spirituality. It's as close as logic gets. After all, logic cannot accept that there is a God. It can accept that there is a pattern that may lead to Godhead, but not that there is a God. And yet, at the same time, here in the 18.2, you have logic actually crying out to be abstract. It's crying out because basically the 30s gave to the fates and saying, maybe you can do something about this. Maybe there's something that I don't know about that can actually bring about some kind of correction. But if you can't correct, then what do you fear? What authority are you afraid of then? It's not about you saying that your mother and your father got it wrong. You're saying that the holy got it wrong. And what's why in this logical system we end up with a Father God. You end up with this rigid foundation dragged from the detriment of the first line and into the second line, and it becomes the raging at God. Fix this please, dear. Lord, fix it. I can. Nobody can. Only you can. And you can see that if you look at evangelism, you can see that this is the heart and soul of evangelism, that we are full of sin, that we're terminal in our limitation, that there's nothing we can do, and that all we need to do is to channel the raging into the wind into a nice coordinated prayer. Dear Lord, I'm bad, I'm weak, I'm afraid. Dear Lord, save me. It's a great line. So if you're 2-4 and you get called here, you know what you're called to. You know right away. And boy, can you be of service on the cross of service? We're holding services today, morning mass, every evening prayers, 5 times a day. Get down, point toward Becca, go into your house, go into your little altar, light your candles, call on the great forces of the great authority, and guess what? You better fear God. You fear his authority, depending on which God you have. If your God is Yahweh, you better be afraid. This is a vicious God. It will punish you for 10 generations. This is really vicious. Gods logically should be feared. I think it's wonderful. So there is the 2-4 missionary. And everybody says, where do you get to the missionary with the 2-4? It's right there. And guess what the new partnership is? I'm the pride of Jesus. Yeah. Yeah, do it, honey. If you're going to marry someone, you might as well marry Jesus, right? I didn't realize that Jesus was a polemicist. You have all these brides of Jesus. There are many brides of Jesus. Where does it say that you're allowed to be a polygamist? Anyway, aside from my black sense of humor, think about it. What do you think the evangelists call the men and women that are there in front of them? They say, brother, sister, this is the line of brotherhood, sisterhood, brother, sister, fear God. We are unable to correct the way. We need to God lights to do that. Heal us, dear Lord. Oh, I love it. It's so funny. If you go to the tribe, for the tribe of God is very, very personal. It's so personal, it's spooky, and they're really very different because of them. God only has to do with being allowed to kill. After all, for the tribe, the one thing that they're going to kill to eat. And for them, this is the whole business of religion. They thank the spirits of whatever they kill because they can eat. But logic says, let's have something large here. Let's have something that fits everyone. And how do we bring them all together? We scare the piss out of them. And you can only do that if they know the way of being able to do what you promised. God can do. You can't go to heaven on your own. You've got a terminal disease. It's called being human. We're here to show you the way. And how do we show you the way? To give you a pattern. Every Sunday you come here. You join us, brother and sister, in praying to this God. And it does not turn its vengeance against us. And when we go to the 28:2, what do you think the 28:2 does? It says, shake hands with the devil. Here's the 18:2 saying, be afraid of God. And the 28 saying, shake hands with the devil. And you can see what's going on here in the spleen. What do you do with fear? If the 2:4 isn't called out, it's terrified being on this cross. I don't need to be of service to anybody. I barely can be of service to myself. This line has more impact on our lives than just about anything because it sets up the universal fear that none of us can personally deal with. We can't. We're not allowed. The individual says, I can't be one with God. I'll shake the hands with the devil. At least the devil will shake my hand. God's up there telling me that it's going to kill me if I'm not doing this or that. The devil says I can't do whatever I want. And at least the devil I meet. You never get to meet God. That is his power. It's a 1858 actually could meet God. What do you think that would be the result of that would be? They'd come back to earth and they'll say, I'm not really impressed. It doesn't work. Logic will always see protection. Even God can't be perfect to 1858. It's not possible. So there can't be any collective God that you can really touch because otherwise you wouldn't be afraid. You wouldn't even turn it out to be an ogre. It wouldn't give you that kind of fear. All you want to do as a human being is figure out how to kill it. We tried it, by the way. Humanity tried to kill God in the 50s. Time magazine published on the front page, God is dead. It's my favorite front cover of Time. God is dead. And the front cover. I thought, good, great, we tried. It doesn't work. We're scared. And it's right there. It's in the logic. And this is the service of humanity. How nice. Thank you very much. So then we get to the 2-5. Fives always have to deal with the fact that the moment that the other meets them, there's always this 1/millionth of a second positive projection. And one of the things about the 2-5s is that it's uncomfortable in its configuration and that there's actually projection on them that despite the fact that they say it, it can be fixed, but somehow there's the assumption that they can't fix it. Then in fact they can communicate with God. You don't want to live with that as a projection. And of course, one of the things you see about 2-5s and 5-2 is how they pull away and that you don't see it. It was curious about something. So I was looking at the global survey this morning. It's interesting because it adds several hundred every day. And so I like to watch the fluctuation in movements and whatever. The most interesting thing to note is that the harmonic profile is by far the largest in terms of entries, is a 2-5. And you can see right away that I talked about yesterday about the advantages of the technological age for the 2-5s and the 5-2s, that they can actually play a role and integrate from the virtual space. It's just interesting to see that all of these harmonic profiles that are going to set aside to download free charts, here's a 2-5 and it's way ahead percentage wise. It's about half a percentage point higher than all of the other harmonic profiles, which is really statically a lot. So it's interesting to see that yes, they're all locked away. They've got there too. They're more likely to be hooked into the virtual outlet once they save the 5, the paranoia. The general, they can wait a distance before it really needs to be called, waiting for the practical moment and all that stuff. But again, when you're looking at this in concept of this duality, there is this recognition that you cannot fix your relationship with the other. It's just there. And for the 2-5, it will bring a deeper tensions to simply get involved with that. They're more likely to have good relationships over the telephone, over the internet, ways in which they can really have to come out and threaten their aura in that sense. Thank you very much, Ron. Great job.